Hi, Joey Chris here with Professional Contractor Supply with another PCS safety update. Today's topic is the inspection of a Safewaze harness model number SW5210 and SW5211. This harness is specifically made for the solar and the roofing industry. The reason for that is these workers will sometimes sit on the roof, they'll scooch along or move along, and the material in that subpelvic support area of the harness will actually prematurely wear, meaning we might have to fail the harness. So what we did is had the manufacturer sew on a wear pad. This takes the abuse and it alleviates the material that's actually the load part of the material alone. Now, when you receive this harness, the first thing you want to do is, when you get it out of the bag, is you want to locate this tag that's in the back. It's Velcroed, and what's in there, or what's below it, is all of the information about this harness. Remember, OSHA states that we have to inspect the harness twice a year by a competent person and note it, meaning all of this information is going to be noted, right? It's identifying this particular harness. The second thing we want to note is that behind the part number there's an S/M. What they're telling you is that this is a small medium harness. Conversely, they make another one as L/XL, or you can get an double extra large or an extra small. Now, when you're sending it back out in the field, make sure you close this, because if the tag gets messed up or you can't read it or it's missing, I have to fail the harness, and that's per the manufacturer's guidelines. So what do we do when we move on from this harness is, if you'll note, right below, above that little tag is there's a load indicator. What this load indicator is telling you is that if someone was to fall in this harness, that material that's sewn up above itself would pull apart. There would be a red notice in there telling you that it's time to fail the harness. Now, OSHA says that if you are the competent person and somebody falls into gear, you can inspect it and put it back into service. But the manufacturers of all gear tell you, you fall in their gear, it's no longer any good. Okay, we want to move on to the quick connectors. Now, on this particular harness, there's one on each leg and one in the middle. This is how it works. You push them both forward and this thing disconnects. If you're going to inspect it, we put it together and we make sure that they're locked. If you take one finger and push just one side and it pulls apart, that would constitute a failure. The other thing we need to know, on all metal components on a harness, do not engrave them, because that will promote rust. If rust is on there, then I have to fail the gear again. So the other part we want to look at is the stitching. There's stitch patterns all throughout this harness. What we want to do is we want to inspect them and see how many broken stitches there are. 2 in one run or 5 in a pattern means I would have to fail this gear. So we have to inspect that and then note it as well. Now, the next thing we want to look at is the color of the harness. If the color is half of it, the color when you bought it, it means the sun baked it out. It means it's had too much exposure. Indicators of that would be that fuzzy material you see on the other side. That's stitching that's breaking. It would be time to fail the gear. We don't want to load it and have our material weak. That would be the worst thing that can happen. The other thing we want to note is along the edges. If there's more of an 1/8 of an inch cut, we also have to fail it. Welds. If you've got somebody who's using a welder or a hot slag lands on the harness and it makes a brown spot, that constitutes a failure as well. Okay, so what we want to do from there is we want to make sure that we don't alter our gear in any way. Sometimes we have these straps that hang way out because you got a large harness on a small user and they want to cut it. You'll notice that there's a termination on the end of all these straps. That prevents this material from coming through the buckle and back out in case you had it all the way adjusted out and you fell. You don't want it coming all the way through it, which means you might fall out of your harness. So that's important to know. Also, this little indicator up here, this is a D-ring. What this is meant for is if you were to have a Y lanyard and you're connected, the other leg, people used to hook them onto their side D-ring. You definitely don't want to do that. The reason for that is if you fall and that loop you've created hooks onto something, it'll side load you. You can have a problem. So they want it to hook up here, which is plastic. If that got loaded, this would break away and allow the D-ring on your back to work. So the other thing we want to inspect again is the side D-rings. Make sure they're in all good working order. They're not nicked, that we don't have rust corroding on them. Those would be things that would indicate that we'd have to fail it. Now, also on this harness, there's a wear pad. It goes all the way to the back. We've got our D-ring located here. If this starts to fade or gets rough around the edges, don't worry about it. It's more for comfort. This is the part of the material that we're looking to make sure it's in good condition. Now, the last thing, which is really important for the roofing and the solar industry, is we have harnesses that sometimes will get sealant on them. It's really important to know. All manufacturers tell you if there's paint, sealant, something that you can't identify on that particular good, you have to fail it. So with this particular harness by Safewaze, we've had the Rainbuster product tested, ANSI tested on the harness. So if that's the product you're using out in the field and it gets on your harness, we issue you a letter. You keep that in your file, letting them know that this particular harness can actually perform with that chemical on it. If you have any questions about any of this product we've talked about today, make sure you give me a call. At the end of the video, my contact information will be on there. And always have a safe day.